Hey everybody, it's Scott Tutwiler, and we're going to do another live stream today. We're going to do some quick Capture One here to kind of kick things off, move into Photoshop, and then head back into Capture One near the end to try and just kind of work through some of the color grading and things like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the comments. If you're new to the channel, say hi, so I know you're here. It's just nice to be able to retouch pictures and know there's actually people watching, and it's not just me sitting here. So I have some music in the background. If that bothers you, let me know if it's too loud. Otherwise, it's just kind of there if there's dead air, so I'm not talking the entire time. So today we're going to work on this picture of Jennifer that I took actually last autumn. I haven't seen her this fall because of COVID, as she lives in Chicago, and there's obviously a quarantine, I would say war, between Wisconsin and Illinois, where neither can travel, each person can travel between the two states without being kind of shut down. I just brought my daughter back from college yesterday, for example, and when she goes back to Chicago, she has to quarantine, self-quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks before she can return to campus. So making it difficult to work with some of the models I work with out of Chicago typically. So what I wanted to do today is we're going to take this picture and we're going to really torque on the fall bits of it. So we're going to play with the colors a bit, and then we're going to go in and we're going to mess with Photoshop and add some overlays, some leaves and things. I put a link down below to where I get the overlay pack that I use. I have one overlay pack that I use a lot, and it's got like 15,000 or 18,000 things in it, probably half of which are useless to me. But the other half were worth, I don't know, 50 bucks or whatever I paid for it a couple of years ago. I have used it a lot. So there's a link down there if you want that. Terry says, what a beautiful picture. Thank you very much. Yeah, we had a great time. This is a location called Holy Hill, which is near my house. It's a basilica out in the middle of pretty much nowhere in the middle of Wisconsin. So they have a beautiful grounds there that turns a lovely yellow in the wintertime, in the fall. So what I want to do today is we're gonna play with this. So I'm doing this kind of in a timely manner because it's still fall outside and there's still some nice colors. So if you're shooting portraits outside in the fall and with the leaves and so on and the colors, and you want to be able to manipulate them a bit, this is kind of talking to those folks. So I did a Halloween one a couple days ago where I kind of played with a lady's face, my friend Angela, and I'm actually going to do a shorter, more concentrated version of that one as an upload and not a live stream. So if you want to make a creepier portrait of your friends for the holiday coming up, that's an opportunity. So just a reminder that we do have a Discord server, so if you like to chat text-wise and or voice, we do have that link down below. It's free, and there's some special areas for people who support the channel. Those people obviously get free textures and other little goodies along, so I appreciate everyone who supports the channel. All right, so let's go start in Capture One here. If you're not a Capture One user, we're going to be out of Capture One pretty quickly and moving into Photoshop. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten this picture because it's a little crooked. And the only reason I know that is it feels crooked. That's all I can tell you. And I don't know why it feels crooked, but it just does. And I'm going to fix it until it no longer feels crooked. It's pretty much the way I play the game. So I'm just going to straighten it. I'm actually going to change the crop to an 8.5 as well. 8.5, I'm sorry, 8 by 10. I'm just going to straighten it a bit here until it doesn't feel as crowded. I am going to lose some top and bottom here, but I don't really feel that they're the star of the show here. So this no longer feels crooked to me. Maybe a little less crooked. It's one of those things you'll play with it for a while until you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. All right, that looks good to me. Before we go into Photoshop, we always want to make sure if we're using RAW, and why would you not use RAW? If you have a modern camera, you're kind of missing the boat if you're shooting a JPEG. We want to make sure our exposure is perfect. By the way, this needs to be upgraded to the new engine. There we go. So I want to make sure my exposure is everything it should be. And to do that, I want to go in here and look at my histogram to see how it's doing. I'm going to use the entire width of this for the most part. I would like her skin to be kind of on this line here as a general rule of thumb. So I'm just going to hover over her face here and see that it's pretty much on the mark. And we haven't adjusted anything yet, so I did that one well. I don't really need any lifting of the shadows here. As we see, we do have some gap here. As a matter of fact, we could probably bring this in to bring those blacks in a bit to make it not look so washed out. So what you're doing is you're telling basically this curve that this is the new black point, not way over here. So we have this gap here. If you can see that well enough, I'll make it bigger. What we want to do is bring this in like this, so that it's saying this is the new black point. And that looks a lot less washed out now. And I think that's probably good enough for me. As far as white balance goes, I'm not really going to worry about white balance, but if I needed to, I could hit W on my keyboard and hit the sclera of her eye because I don't have a white balance card, and hopefully that'll give me a better color. If it doesn't, well, try it again. I don't know, I like the color I had a minute ago, so I'm going to Control Z that back out to this and say that's good enough. To me, white balance is more personal taste, so I'm not really worried about if this dress, by the way, was from a designer and they had a specific color red that it must be, then that's when I really worry about white balance. Otherwise, I don't really worry about it unless I have a series of images that all have to have the same kind of look and feel. But then I want to make sure that they kind of fit my mood and my style. So I'm going to go with this. And so I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to throw this into Photoshop right away. Okay, there's a quick flash of what I did yesterday. We're going to play with this again later on today. I'm just going to upload a separate video on how to make three little applications I use, or three little methods I would use to kind of creepy up a photo a bit. Obviously, she has in black contacts here, but we can actually black out her eyes a little more, what do you want to call it, strategically, so that if we wanted to do this as someone who didn't have blackout contacts, things like that. Just fun little tips to have in your pocket. Okay. So let's get started here. So the first thing I want to do is I don't really like the color of the leaves in the background. Like they're fine, but I think they need a little more something. And then this color of this dress is fine to me, but I might want to mess with that as well. So there's a bunch of ways to do this, but probably the easiest is just to use the hue and saturation adjustment layer. And you can go up and you can click on this icon here, and then grab something yellow, like this leaf here. And then we can slide it back and forth to play with this until we're kind of happy with it. I just want a little bit more something from it, and I think that's delivering nicely. There we go. And you see all it did was change it to yellow and then play with the saturation. So we don't want that to be too much, but I also want it to look like it's a sunny day. So this is the direction I want to go. Let's try the dress now. So again, same trick, just click on it and then click on the dress, and we can play with that a bit. Once it's selected, we can also manipulate it in other ways, but I think everything else is kind of an unfortunate, fortunate direction there. So we're going to go with a little bit more red. Something like that. A little more interesting. By the way, I bought this off of Wish, which is one of those apps that is really annoying that, you know, constantly use this, but I have bought a couple dresses off there that I really have liked. I've also bought a lot of things that were terrible, so it is kind of hit or miss, but kind of neat that that service is available. Although I must say that since COVID kicked in, those packages are coming even slower than they were before, and they were slow to start with. Okay, this is good enough. Now, what I want to do is kind of make this a little more interesting. So I have this, as I said, I mentioned this overlay collection. It's like 15,000 whatevers. There are all kinds of junk in here, realistically. Glitter, I use haze. There's some other things, floral backgrounds, floating dust, I use that a ton. All these are in that set. And there's always a coupon online for this site, by the way. So if you're paying full price, you're doing it wrong. There's always some sort of 30 or 50% coupon floating around. So I'm just going to try a couple of these and see how they go. What I like to do when I do these types of things is work with the foreground, the middle ground, and the background independently. And I think I get a better result. So let's start with, say, this group here. Just going to grab it. And I haven't done this before, so obviously you're watching this unfolding as I'm working on it. So I'm just going to go with this. And I'm just going to, it's only going to cover about half the screen because I want the leaves to be appropriate sized for what they would be like behind her. Something like this. And I'm going to duplicate that. Just put it over here, and maybe we'll flip it upside down just so it doesn't look the same. Something like that. Plenty of leaves. And don't worry if they're in front of her, that's not a big deal. I'm going to combine these two together and do one more. And turn it as well. It's okay if it's over here somewhere. Something like that. So it looks like there's a bunch of leaves there. I'm going to flatten all these down so they're on one layer, and we're going to call this background. BKG leaves. So I find that by working on it in layers, I get more control. So I do maybe want to use my crop tool and just click on the image here. Make sure that we have the whole image selected. Hit clear. Something like this. Oops. And then go and just click enter and delete those pixels back there. The reason I do that is because this stuff is all living back here, and this image couldn't get sizable. So we just want to be careful. Right now we're at 337 meg, and we can approach 2 gig pretty easily, so you gotta be careful. Okay, so this looks super fake, and the reason it does is these leaves don't really adhere to the depth field that would have been created by this. So I want to do is I want to take this and I want to blur this. Now, you can do it 2 ways. You can just blur it, or I think a smarter way to do it is convert it to a smart object first. That way the blur is non-destructive, and if we want to change it later, we want to do some different things like that, then we can. I'll give it just a moment here. Is the music too loud, too soft? How is that? I just picked jazz because it's super non-offensive, and, you know, acid metal may not go over as well. All right, so I'm going to do this and do filter, blur, and pick like Gaussian blur, and pick something like yeah, let's go with 4. That works for me. And see how that looks. Does it look realistic? And I think that does. That looks pretty good, right? Now we do have some problems in that some are in front of her. So we're going to put a mask on that by clicking the mask icon here. B for brush, big brush, lots of flow on black. So black is kind of like painting putting black paint over this white here. And anywhere we put that black paint, we won't see the leaves anymore. It's kind of masking it out. Thus the word mask. So I'm actually a little aggressive there. Just get rid of these. Just the ones on her face. Like this. Anywhere where it looks like it might be a little wonky. No, I don't mind these here so much. And I think we have a bit many of them. A bit many. A lot of them. Let's go back and make it look a little less like there's significant hawk's nest over her head or something, causing all these things to fall. Something like this. And I may need to tweak the color a bit. So again, hue and saturation adjustment layer, and we're going to clip it to that, and then we have full range to control those colors. So we're just going to go in here and make it look like it fits. Just going to wiggle these around until I like the result. You can even kind of push them a little bit more toward red so they're working with the dress a little bit more than they do with the background. Thank you, Jennifer and Terry, for the volume affirmation. Okay, and now let's go with the middle ground. So middle ground, it's like some of these are a combination of 4 and middle ground. So you could actually go with one of those, but I want any of these, obviously big main leaves here if you want them, which we might use. Let's just borrow one of these. Put it on the screen there. Don't forget about it for a while. Let's go back. And I want to find some middle groundy ones. I think these might be a good option. Depends on what kind of leaf you want. I think these were all maple, as I recall. So here's a middle ground, and here's a middle ground with a foreground. So I'll just go with this. Enter. We'll turn off that giant leaf there and play with these first. So it came in like this, and I may want to rotate it, but I don't think I do. Like I kind of like it this way, right? So kind of get it to where I want it, and it's too big. Something like this. And I think that's probably good enough. I'm going to rasterize this layer because it's a smart object and I don't need it to be. And now a cool thing is you can go and actually just take one of these leaves like this, and if you hold down your Control and Shift, you can actually pick up the leaf and move it. You let off Shift, by the way. Otherwise, it'll lock to a certain constraint there. So just hold down your Control key. So you can move these leaves around if you need to. Something just like this. And then again, same trick. We can blur this layer a bit if it needs it. We have a little bit of motion blur on them already, which I kind of like. Oops. So this one here did not survive the clip of the I'm gonna call it the image when they made it. So we can either sacrifice it, or we can just stick it against the top of the screen there like that and call it good. And then do we need any adjustments for color on this one? Oops, wrong thing. I want to use an adjustment layer. Sorry, I have a habit of using the solid color adjustment layer for a lot of things, because it allows you kind of more interactively adjust the color of things. Same trick. I just let's not just do that one. Flip it here. And apparently I made a mask inadvertently because I still had a selection on when I did that before. So make sure you don't have a selection, or you're going to get a mask with that selection already made. It's one of those things about Photoshop is you're going to find your troubleshooting. Why did that happen? And one of the things are masks or selections you forget you've made that will haunt you for a while. So just a common little thing that happens quite often. I want to make sure these don't look so evenly spaced either. I don't want to look too fake, but I also don't want it to look like it's just around her. So something like this. Drop my selection. Control D, by the way, is dropping a selection, which is one of the main keys I changed in, I believe it was Capture One, because Control D was like process all images or something like that, and I accidentally set like 150 images to Photoshop once, so I changed that shortcut key right away. So go here to this. Let's see, this was actually belonging to, I guess it was up here. This one. And then changing the colors here. Making it just a little different. We don't want all the same color. We want some variety. Like this, perhaps. I think those look pretty good. All right, and let's grab one more. And I want something I can use in the foreground. So I think this one's a good one. You can use any of these realistically, but they need to be big, just because you have that whole depth of field thing going on. So I really like this one because it's almost ready to go right on the wagon there. Look at that. I don't know that I want it intersecting the dress so much, but I do like it like in here in general. So what I can do is, again, use this method. I gotta be careful though, in that because these are objects that are soft, if I am not careful, we gotta rasterize that layer, by the way, and move that around inadvertently. We have to make sure that we don't create a hard edge. Let me give you an example. So if I cut this, say I got too close to one leaf and I move this, you're gonna see that we create that edge. So we gotta be kind of careful in getting in between those leaves like that without making a mess. Something. So we can kind of move this stuff around a bit. Maybe something like that. I just kind of inspect my work, and sure enough, you see we have a little bit of goofiness in here. But what I would probably just use is my eraser, which I rarely ever use, but it's a good option here because it's kind of so soft. Same with the bottom here. There's a little line. Whenever you're playing with overlays and you're chopping them up like this, you got to be really careful to go in and inspect the edges like that, because you can create a mess later that you don't notice, and then you kind of hate on yourself and go, should have paid more attention to that. Okay, that's nice. And then let's put a hue saturation adjustment layer on that one. Oops. So we have a hue saturation adjustment on each set of leaves that we brought in, and it's clipped. So each one, so this one's for this one, this one's for this one, and this one's for this one. This is that giant leaf. I don't even know what we're gonna do with that yet, but we'll just keep it. So go here. Then play with those front leaves a bit. And like that, perhaps. Not sure about position right now, but that's pretty good, I think. So it's kind of sanity check myself. One other thing you can do is if you I don't think that they're all should be equally blurred. Like maybe this one it just draws my eye. Just grab the blur tool because it's not a smart object. And you go and just blur it. Blatantly blur it. I use this tool a lot actually. That's nice. Okay. Maybe one other thing. I'm not sure if I want to do anything with that leaf. I don't think I do. I'm just gonna get rid of it. Something that's nice is adding kind of like a feeling of sun over there. So there's a couple ways to do that. One is just take a big brush and pick a yellow color or make a yellow color. Big giant brush. And I do is I just tend to put it kind of in the middle of the canvas. And then you use your move tool and move it off to the side. Creates that little illusion that there's some sort of light over here. Now, if you don't like the color that you made, that's where I use this solid color adjustment layer. And just clip it like you do all the other ones. But what's nice about this is you can actually change it in real time and look at the color you've made. So if you want to make adjustments, you can. Although, makes me wonder why it's not working. What did I do wonky here? Let's try that again. Because that should be a no-brainer. Solid color adjustment. Oops. I keep clicking early today. Got up too early maybe. That was the problem. Solid color adjustment. There we go. I don't know what the problem was. Anyway. Oh, I don't think I was actually changing the low. I think I was changing my foreground color. So something warmish and super saturated. Yeah, but looks natural, right? Now, because it is just a circle, we can move it around until we're happy with it. You can also change the blending mode. Screen might be a good option here. Something like that. If you don't like this, another option is actually just put it in the scene. So for example, we could do this a few different ways, but this is my favorite method. So I'm just going to go ahead and flatten this. I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to do Control J, and I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to hold down my Shift, or I'm going to hold down my Shift and Alt keys so it changes the size, but it doesn't change its center. Okay. I'm going to do it again. Control J, again, Control T, and then I'm going to hold down my Shift and my Alt. So Alt allows it to move from the middle, and Shift to make sure that it stays a square. So these three layers together on top of each other look like a sun. And I usually just make either group them like that or group them like this. And then you've got a sun you can move around. A little bit more natural feeling if you like that kind of thing. Then if you're feeling really frisky, there are overlays you can get. And again, that's another one of those things I bought. Light sun, or I want light layers, I think. No, that's the right one. Let's grab one of these. I think it was $100 or something like that. It was a little bit more of an expensive pack, but for the amount that I used it over the years, it was worthwhile. Because it creates a much more realistic looking sun flare, than, well, the one that comes with Photoshop is so generic. Please don't use that. Use something or nothing else. So this is another option. I don't really like that one that much. Let's try a different one. There's a whole bunch in this pack. And I don't have a link for this or anything. It's just one of those things I found online that I've used. Maybe this one is kind of crisp. See how it looks. And you have to change these to screen. So screen says if it's black, don't do anything. And if it's white, do everything. That looks super fake. Not picking that one. Which do you like, Judith? Do you like the new fake sun or the layer stack that we made quickly? I think I like this one. Let's try it. Kind of cool, like if it were just behind your arm there. Like, what are the odds that photographer nailed that where the sun was right in her arm like that? Wow, he's really good. And behind your head, over here, over here. I like it up there. Obviously, for this shot, I did use external light. This is a Molite AD200. So I had that right here on a medium octabox, as I recall. All right, so everybody seems to like the layers. Let's go back to the layers then. There we go. So there's your layers. Bam. Done. Smaller, I think, is more believable, perhaps. Not that we need it to be super believable. But if you need to, again, you can put a solid color adjustment layer and then clip it to that whole group. And then you can mess with the whole group of colors until you're looking for the right color temperature or something like that. Anyway. That's nice. I like that. Is it too much, though? This is where the art comes in. They do, just because you can do a thing, by the way, doesn't mean you should. There's oftentimes I see things that people put on images and they edit it, and you're like, well, I wish you really kind of would have left it alone. It looked better before. So don't push it if you hate it. Like putting it on this side, by the way, would be silly because there's shadows on her side of her face. You see, this side is clearly lit, but that oftentimes doesn't occur to people to think about the direction of the light. So just be aware of that. So something like this. This, by the way, is done quite often. So in a way, it's kind of an overdone effect, but I still like it. One other thing that's in this, I think it was these flares and haze. Just random things like this. But we might find, so see, here's one here. It's all ready to go. But just be aware that this one has a banding, it looks like. You see these bands of color in here? You gotta be careful with those if you're gonna print the image. These are not the highest quality things in the world. It's only 8-bit color depth. That means you only get 256 colors of red, green, and blue. If you're working at 16-bit, you have 4,096 variations of those. Let's use this one. So I want to show you this trick. It's kind of nice. So just throw this right over the top of the entire image here. Like this. And then you can play with different blending modes. Usually screen or overlay or soft light would be the ones that I would probably go for right away. These other ones are going to be a little overbaked, but something like this, for example. And then again, you can attach a hue and saturation adjustment layer, the handiest layer around today, and then play with the mood a bit if you'd like. I don't know, just a thought, just trying some different things to see what kind of art pops out of it, looking for happy accidents and maybe an effect that inspires me in some way. I also like these bokeh ones, although not that one so much. Maybe this one, yeah. Throw this one on here, kind of like this. Something I might, yeah, something like this would be fine. And then again, change the blending mode. It's okay to you know, experiment a bit. Don't freak out if you don't like it right away, because there might be, again, there might be something in there. You just haven't found it yet. Like screen, for example, if we lower the opacity, maybe interesting. Again, color dodge and I mean, this whole area of this blending mode areas are probably my favorites. There's so much in here to play with. Like the soft light, for example, and throw a hue and saturation on that. Jennifer says she loves happy accidents, and Judith agrees. If it's too much, just dial it down. Then you got to ask yourself, did this improve the image or not? And if the answer is no, then get rid of it. There'll be times I'll be working on an image for hours, and my wife will come down and watch me, and I'll just take something and delete a whole bunch of stuff. She's like, you just worked on that thing for how long? And you just got rid of it? I'm like, well, it wasn't working. So don't be afraid to walk away from it. Don't beat on it until it just, you know, takes all your time and effort and you get nothing out of it. At some point, you just got to say, this isn't the direction this needs to go. Don't ever use this one, by the way. My God, why is that even in here? I'm just going to delete that. That's the default Photoshop one. It's so blaringly obvious. Jennifer says, by the way, that Overly website has 50% off right now. So that pack is $25. Yeah, I paid $70 for it, and I think that was a good deal. So, Jennifer, if you know that code and you read it, or put it in the thing, I'll say it. It's probably something like save 50 or something. They usually have pretty simple codes. Let's try this one. I might like this one. So again, playing with these, even something like this. RJ says the J.J. Abrams special, yes. Can be over the top. Yeah, we don't want her on fire here. I think I like the screen. And you can mask this, but you got to be careful with it, because if you mask, it's going to look really obvious. So you can see here, it'd be a really big soft brush, really big, and don't let those edges show. So a little bit more of a easy touch here with this. Maybe since we've got her mask off, maybe these other ones kind of sound better now. Maybe. Nope, I still like that one. And hue and saturation, because we did lower the opacity, maybe I want more saturation. Okay, did that improve it, the image? I think a bit, but not a lot. Like, I liked it to begin with. Scary 50, 5 days left on that. So if you're looking to get that bundle, use the code. The link is in the description below. Use the code SCARY50 for 50% off of that. Thank you, Jennifer, for finding that. There's always coupons for that site. And I've purchased, I probably have 4 or 5 different bundles off there over time, but like this one has a bunch of fonts and things, and I don't use those, but there are so many other things that are useful. One other thing I like to add to images is floating dust. I think that adds a lot of kind of volume, or volumetrics, I should say, to the image. But again, this is one of those things, if you overdo it, it's going to look really terrible. But let's go whole hog. No, shouldn't light the forest on fire. Let's not use that one. How about this one? Yeah, something like that. I'm just showing you techniques here. Obviously, you pick the ones you want to use. This doesn't appeal to you. Well, that's art, right? You do your own thing. Rotate this. And remember, if you don't want the black to show up, it has to be in the screen blending mode. And if you want the opposite, by the way, is the multiply blending mode. So if you want the white to go away, that's what multiply does. Overlay, by the way, is medium gray, 50% gray, and anything lighter than gray is brightened in screen mode, and anything darker than gray is darkened in multiply mode. So the overlay mode is kind of a cool tool that way. I'm just looking at this. Is this too much? Just reconsidering it. I think I've decided I don't like that. Bugs. Yeah, that's what I want. Bugs. Bugs in the forest. Let's try this one that looks like a forest fire. Let's try this one. Just over the whole thing. Screen. I don't mind that, actually. Although it's a bit foggy. And the reason that is because the histogram on it is, you see, it's the same problem we had when we started the image. There's no true black. So if you pull this over, then you get rid of that fogginess. So you can use your curve to adjust how aggressive that is. So if you got a dot on here and you don't want it, by the way, just drag it off the screen. Something like that. Although it looks like this is a bit on the noisy side. Do you see all that noise that's introduced in the image? I'm not sure I like that. So let's blur it a bit. Just like a 1. That should get rid of all the noise. Or a lot of it. Not really. It's better. Where did our music go? There we go. Too quiet. Yeah, so be careful when you do use overlays like this. Sometimes you'll get one that's a little on the noisy side. Like that one is a bit noisy. I do like the effect, but I think we're creating a little bit more of a panic than we need to for ourselves. Well, let's use this one. I'm going to hit save, because it's getting to be probably pretty sizable. And is there anything else I want to add to it? So we added a kind of an overlay of color, and it didn't really like those. And an overlay of dust, and I ended up killing that as well. What else we got in here? Glitter. This is, yeah, this is not what we want. But there might be, again, happy accidents, like this one, for example. So this one, remember that if we put something in screen blending mode, the black goes away. So if we put this in screen, we can use this to add bokeh to an image that maybe doesn't have as much as we'd like. Obviously, we have to mask it out over her, but we could use this to add additional bokeh to a side of the image. So if we wanted that on this side, for example. We need to change the color a bit. Let's just do that real quick so you see what I'm talking about. So just throw that on there, hue and saturation adjustment, flip it, and then just change the color. So you can use this to make additional bokeh in the image, although it looks weird because it's going through her, but kind of interesting. That in the circular file. I don't think there's anything else in here, but it's a good collection of stuff for the most part. I don't have the whole thing downloaded either. I mean, there's all in all these little selection sections and stuff, and some of them are just goofy. Like I don't make holiday greeting cards, so there's all these holiday greeting card textures and stuff. I don't have any reason for that. And this stuff, why is that in there? Things like this too look really innocent, but these are actually handy as well. So maybe not for this image, but I'll show you what I mean. So this is one of those, again, another problem solving thing. So you put this on here, and you can do filter. Oh, by the way, you have to not have it be a, well, it could possibly be a smart object and this might work, but I typically always turn that off. So blur gallery and use, let's say it was lens blur here. And in here, you can play with the amount of blur that you want the little dots to have. And kind of make your own bokeh depending on the shape of your, what do you want to say, your blades and your camera lens would be. Oh, a way to take something that's somewhat innocuous like this and use it. I actually sometimes will take a picture of a desert sand and use the quick selection tool, which will give you kind of a random smattering of particles. And I have used that before to create noise that I wanted to introduce into an image as well. Again, just another problem solving technique. I don't know what these are. What is that? Oh, giant snowflakes. Yeah, that's helpful. That's not helpful. Oops. Overlay bundle. Oh, pastel is another one that's nice. So it's just these big color blocks like this. It doesn't look very useful, but if we take this, kind of the same thing we did before. And you don't obviously need that overlay bundle to do any of this. I mean, I'm just showing you some ideas for maybe messing with your fall colors. Instead of using presets, like every person on the block who's got a camera or has a phone is using those default presets in Instagram, right? So nobody's like, oh, that's a really nice treatment for the photo. How did you do that? Well, yeah, I picked one of the 12 presets at the bottom of Instagram, right? So these are some ways for you to go about making whatever you want to do. So I'm going to do filter, blur, and again, I could maybe use that lens blur thing here and go hog on it. Set it to 11. Bam. Like this. Whether you want some highlights in it or not. Something like that. And then change the blending mode. What a horrible thing I've done. We can abandon it, but let's play with it just a second here. A little too much yellow, but if you have a picture that needs a pop of color, putting an overlay over the top of it and then messing with it's kind of fun. Tom says he just bought the pack. Yeah, it's a good investment. And I didn't mean for this whole stream to be an advertisement for that product, but I use it. If you watch my stream, I use it all the time. Yeah. Funny bubbles. Yeah, no, not really using that one. Leaves. There's all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so let's color grade this thing. So let's go back into Capture One here and find it. Right here. By the way, you can color grade it in Photoshop. Let me show you a couple of quick ones for that. Again, if you're a preset person, you can get LUTs. So that's here under color lookup as an adjustment. And then you can go and grab these LUTs. So I usually just pick one and then work my way through them until something inspirational happens. Drop blues is one of my favorites. I like this one quite a bit. But I don't use them right out of the box like this. Fall colors. How appropriate is that one? Because again, everybody and their brother can pick one of these. This isn't really my jam though. I like the darker, weird ones. The rest of these are kind of meh. Futuristic bleak. Not for what we're doing here. Well, let's use that one's actually kind of nice, isn't it? Soft warm. So before and after, maybe. Maybe. Possibly. I kind of like that it lifted the blacks a bit. And by the way, I did not retouch her skin during this stream. I'm going to do that after we're done. I won't bore you with that. I retouch skin on this stream so often that you guys are probably sick of seeing it. And if you aren't sick of seeing it, go watch a previous stream. In fact, I left one of my streams up with my friend Rachel where she's wearing a kind of a body paint and a headshot. I go through a lot of skin retouching techniques during that hour-long ordeal. Okay, so let's use this one here. So you can do this in Photoshop, or I'm going to use Capture One here. And again, look at that the black point here for the curve. And you can also lift it, by the way. So if you lift it, you're allowing no true black to exist in the image, which means that you'll get, even in the darkest areas, there'll still be something. It won't be black. And then I like to go and start with, I guess Lightroom now has a tool that's similar to this, where I start in the shadows and I just kind of move this around until I'm happy with what I see. Which, by the way, this time I'm going to have to slow down because normally I just go right to the blues and it's good there. Look in here. I'm just trying to look at the shadows, and I typically like this, the colder side here. Maybe I'll just stick with that. Something like this. Sorry. Phone's going off. All right, midtone, same thing. Poor Man's Color Theory says that the midtone will probably be somewhere opposite to that, so I just kind of start there. That's terrible. And I'm looking at her skin tone more than anything else right now. So is that too orange? That's too yellow. Try and find the right color. Once you got it, then just use this to pull it back in a straight line so you don't accidentally wiggle it and make it do red or too yellow or something like that. You can always go back and change any of these. They're not destructive. And then highlights, I typically don't play with the highlights at all, but that's because that's going to add more color to the sky and things like that. And then your master is your overall. And that does affect exposure, by the way, so you can overexpose the image accidentally if you're not careful. And the image seems just a bit too saturated to me. So I think what we came out of Photoshop with was just a bit much. Maybe. Got a very kind of what's what I'm looking for? Older feel to it, retro kind of feel to it right now. I think a little bit too much orange for my personal taste. Just gonna go and wiggle with these a little bit more. One other thing I want to do is I do want to show a little bit more of this dress. So let's do that briefly. And we do that with just creating a new layer, shift backspace to fill it with gray, and change that to overlay. Super simple way to get to this position. And you could do is you could create a brush that's not huge, 1% flow, painting white. What we're basically doing is going over with white and black and featuring these lines a bit. So you could add more depth to the folds of the dress. If we before and after on that, you can see what we did. Super fast. This is also the same method I use for so much problem solving in portraiture. I'm getting rid of bags under eyes or other issues that I might have with the model or client or whatever. Just be a little artsy with it. You don't have to be exact. We're using a very low flow brush, so we can get away with murder on that. But there you go, just a little bit more oomph. If we go back to Capture One, we can actually do another thing too. We can, I don't like the colors I put in this at all. Let's reset that. You just got to walk away from it for a while and see if you liked it or not. I think maybe I just need to go straight to this one and not battle with the other ones a bit. Yeah, maybe I like that better. It just looks better. The other one's looking kind of weird. And Photoshop has finished saving, so we can regenerate the preview if it didn't do it already. Looks like it did. Do we need any contrast? Maybe a tiny bit. And then what I would probably do, because this is Capture One and we can do it, I would add another layer and go over dress. So using M for mask. I just got the new version of Capture One's beta today. Can't show that yet, and I can't discuss what's in it. But I would guess that soonish there should be a new version of Capture One coming out. I think they just had their sale ending on it though, but those sales happen every so often. So if you're not in an urgent need to upgrade, and we don't know what's in it yet, obviously. Well, I mean, I do, but I can't tell you. I think that you'd be able to make that decision better once you see what's in it. So I'm just playing with the contrast now of this dress specifically. And I want to do clarity. And I use punch usually for dresses. There's a little bit of yoink to the dress, so it's not so flat. So again, subtlety is king here. We don't need to do this to it, right? Although that wasn't too bad, was it? Just go easy on stuff. It doesn't always have to be huge changes. Are so much easier to detect, and if you're light-handed, you can get away with a lot more in photography in general. Just making stuff look natural. Okay, I'll do the skin retouching offline so you guys don't have to sit through that. But overall, I think that's nice. That's a nice fall portrait. I don't like this line through here. I find it visually distracting. So we could do that. We just go back to the beginning. I would duplicate this layer just in case we screw it up. I just want to get rid of the line. To do that, I would just turn off all the other layers so we don't have... And you just alt-click on the eyeball, by the way. If you alt-click it again, it'll turn them all back on and off. So it's a really fast way to do that. It's all about efficiency, right? So I'm going to try this a couple different ways. One is with the healing brush. I'm just going to go and heal that line away. That's okay. But I think maybe the patch tool might do a better job. I tend to love my patch tool. It's okay. It's not about the dress. It's about her. So you could probably get away with this. That edge is looking kind of yucky though. So let's do a new layer with a clone stamp, softish kind of edge. I'm just gonna kind of replace that. And annoyingly enough, my pen pressure is on. Hate that. Because when you start to lay your brush down, you have this pucker that will occur. And it's okay if this doesn't match exactly here. We're just going to kind of get it roughed in. And then we can blur that layer a bit. There, nobody be the wiser. Turn all this other stuff back on. Yeah, it doesn't look as annoying as it did. Like I was just looking, all I could see was the gap. We'll put it on a separate layer, so if we need to, well, part of it on a separate layer. If we need to get rid of it, we can. But in my mind, it's fine. Okay. Did I miss with this one? I did. I must have nudged it at some point. There we go. Save it. Let's go back. Judith says it's just that easy. Yeah, the thing is that people get caught up in worrying about how different it looked from the beginning, and the fact that no one sees the original is huge. One more thing I might just do on here is Control Alt Shift E. Oops. Yeah, that's right. Control Alt Shift E to create a stamp visible. That's everything. I might try and liquefy that a bit, so just to see if we can mess with the shape of the dress a little bit, make it more a little dynamic. Something like that. Got to be careful it doesn't look like the leaves are too pulled in here. I think it does. So that's all right. It's such a minor thing anyway. If we're going to do it, I'd use a way bigger brush. I'll show you. So we just do Control Shift X. Big brush, and then push it. And when you borrow from other leaves, you don't stretch the ones near it. It doesn't look as obvious. There, that should be. Makes the dress a little bit more symmetrical, which I think is kind of interesting for this. Save it. Now if I go back to Capture One, all the changes we already did with color and color grading and all that stuff is still there. It's just going to refresh the images underneath all that. So if you like the stream, click the like button. That lets me know that this was worth your time, and I much appreciate it. So I'm going to refresh this. There we go. I like it. It's interesting. It's fallish. I showed you a bunch of different techniques. You don't really have to like this image as long as you learned how to do it to your own images. I think that's the important part. So bringing in different assets, correcting the color and saturation and possibly the value, moving them around so they don't create distractions, and just making sure that it looks good. And then worrying about the combination of them so that they all get together. RJ says, worth my time. You just seem to have a knack for streaming when I have things to do. Yes, well, it's life, right? This is a good time for me because it's middle of the day. It's lunchtime. So yeah, that's my lunch. I like it. I'll retouch the skin. I won't drag you through that. I'll actually do it right now. But if you wanted to leave the stream because you already know this, I won't cry about it. Yeah, there you go. So to retouch your skin, I would just frequency separate this. If you don't have my frequency separation action, just grab it from the description below. It's free. It won't be free for long though. I'm going to actually move that to be $2 because there are some people that are paying $5 a month to support the channel, and they're awesome. And I want to give them the benefits of a lot of these tools that should be free for them. So grab it if you haven't grabbed it already. This is going to take about 3.5 seconds to do her skin here because her head is small in the frame. So I'm just going to use, again, the healing brush and get rid of any distracting elements here that I see. And guess what? Pen pressure feels like it's on. I don't know why it feels that way. It does. Yeah, that's definitely on. Just getting kind of rid of that stuff. If you don't like this tool, there's a lot of different ways to do this. The other one that's a favorite is the blending tool, or the blending brush. Basically just smearing things effectively. But if you do it in small enough amounts, you can make this work. Just be careful, it doesn't make things look too fake. Now, because of our distance from the camera, this will work fine. Just kind of going through and smoothing out any obvious blemishes and other stuff like that. Very easy. I want to just check the hands. It's a great way to kind of minimize veins a bit by just knocking them down a bit. You don't have to remove them. That looks weird. By the way, this is a great way to remove wrinkles from a dress. So just go in here and smooth this stuff out. Anywhere you see it, just smooth it out. I am using a Wacom Medium Pro tablet, by the way. If I had to recommend a tablet for someone who's new, I would just get the Bamboo, the $99 tablet from Wacom. I don't use the buttons on the side of my Pro, and pen pressure isn't something I use a lot. I use it when I'm in Painter, or if I'm actually painting with another application like Krita, or there's a bunch of Mart Rage. I have a whole bunch of painting applications. Each one has kind of a different bailiwick that it's good at. Like that, and then do the high layer. So we just go and again just remove anything offensive using a clone stamp at this point. Set to current layer. If you get that weird line, you know you got to change the blending mode of the layer. Very common thing. I'm being super fast and doing a horrible job here. You slow down. Constantly sampling with the Alt key. The closer you are in, the more work it's going to be. So you got to like the person to get in this close. If you don't like the person, then don't get this close. Especially if they're going to buy a small print. Don't waste your time doing this if it's a 5x7 client. They're not going to care. They're not going to see this. Especially if it's full body like this. I mean, I don't know if I'd bother retouching the skin at that point for a 5x7. Just kind of evening out the texture so that it looks what I want it to look like. I don't want it to look smooth, but I want it to look evenly textured. Just going for whatever my eye sees that distracts it more than anything else. Hopping around. Keep your eye fresh. Nobody wants stale eyes. Ew. Here we go. Almost done. Good enough. All right. Then the dress, same thing. So if you came down here and you say, well, I want this texture over here to be over here, that will remove those wrinkles, especially if you've knocked them out in that color layer already. This is a really fast way to iron out a dress. Although I think this dress is already really flat in appearance, so this is not kind of helping my case, but that's how you do it. I did a whole video on that, by the way. It's not new. One other thing I'll probably do is add a dodge and burn layer here. So just blank layer, shift backspace, fill it with gray, set it to overlay. And I would go in with a brush, a regular brush, and kind of hit that eye. Just get the catch light here in this part, just a little bit. Just adds that little bit of twinkle. And the same thing, I would just do a bit of light on her chin, Cupid's bow, or snot trough if you're a doctor and you like the technical term. I'm gonna use the lip here. Oops, too much. There. You can use it too if, like this dress is flattening her chest a bit, so you just put some shadow under the breast here, like this, and then put a highlight on top. That's a bit, I set to 11 there. Let's do that again. I'm going to sample the gray and just paint right over that with a low flow so I can knock it back down. So remember that anything is basically a highlight on one side, a shadow on the other side, a pimple, whatever. I mean, you could draw on this dress with something. Let's say we wanted to make a smiley face, right? So we could do, it's just a highlight here and a shadow here, right? Highlight there, shadow, and then highlight. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to use a patch tool. Grab that. Just patch it. So there you go. That is. I think I made her boobs crooked, but sorry, Jennifer. That's actually a great way to remove like a bit of a tummy in someone if they don't like their stomach in an image and they want you to make them look thinner. You don't have to push the sides and just change the highlight shadow so that everything just looks a little flatter. Okay, let's go back to Capture One and do one final sanity check on this, and I believe we're done. I'll get a Halloween Photoshop kind of how to mess with your friends' faces video done today yet, hopefully. And get that up tomorrow or this afternoon, depending on how things are going. Then you'll all have something to play with. Because if you're like Tom, you have nothing to do, then, you know, or not RJ, I'm sorry, RJ. We're just waiting for this to save. And we'll go back into Capture One here. There we go. And regen our preview. Wait for that to stop spinning. Here we go. Then to make any final adjustments, I like to walk away from these things for a while and let my eyes kind of get fresh because they're used to looking at this thing for too long. They're gonna be a problem. So just, I still think this whole image feels just a bit too yellow to me. But I do want it to feel fallish, right? So, but her skin tone is my major concern. RJ says he just turned his best friend into a super old man with the new Photoshop filters. Yeah, we're not going to do that to Jennifer here. You would not be happy with us. Well, there we go. We want to adjust the skin that lives in mid-tone here. So if you want to add a little more color to her, she's pale redhead, but that's why we love her. Just don't like the color of this dress. It's just weird red to me. It's always been like when I first got it, that was the one thing I didn't like about it. It was just a weird red color. Just fiddle with it quickly. You know what? It is just a weird red color, and it's going to live. It's going to stay a weird red color. That's what I think. I'm going to be done with it. Well, there you go. That was me playing with some fall photos. So get your photos out, do some messing around with them, come up with something that you like, and then kick out a bunch to clients and say, hey, I'm doing something that none of the other photographers in my area or all the other, we call them mom-tographers. Those are, moms that bought cameras for their kids, and then they're, hey, I can shoot your senior portraits for, I don't know, $8. I'll give you 300 edits on a DVD. Is that fine? Is that okay? Is it, you want cheaper? I'm sorry, is that too expensive? You don't want to compete against that. So you need to get out of that by either adding lighting, which is a huge, huge thing to learn, or getting creative with your post-production. Most people are trying to just use Lightroom, and Lightroom is not going to be able to do what we did today. So just learning to do some tricks like this makes a significant difference to your business, because you can do things other people can't do, which makes you the only person who supplies that thing. So I hope this was helpful. It was just me playing around a bit to kind of see what works and doesn't work. And you see we did have a bit of things here and there that we didn't like, but that's okay. It's all experimentation. And in the end, I'm happy with the picture, and I think Jennifer will be happy with it as well. That's all I have for today, guys. I'm going to go ahead and bow out and go work on something else. Thank you, Jennifer Biddle, for coming in today as well, and also for supporting the channel. One of my channel supporters who came in today, and you guys help keep the channel alive, and I greatly appreciate it. You have some new textures coming as soon as we get to November. You'll have a new textures, or maybe even 2 this month. I have another texture pack, a pastel pack, that I have not told anybody about yet. I can show it to you. Oh no, I closed Bridge already. I'll open Bridge. I show it to you. That's I'm very happy with it. It was a lot of work, and it's done now. I just kicked out a pack a couple weeks ago, and it, I believe, is no longer on sale now. I put them on significant sale the first 72 hours they're out, and then they go away. And it'll never be that cheap ever again. So when this does come out, you'll be able to see. Now, these are all called untitled at this point, so I'm looking for titles for these. Usually I use like the moons of different planets and things like that. So you see we have very unique, each one's unique, and each one has an impasto. That's where you get like all these very intricate lines in the paint. And then you have a textured version, which is the version that does not have those lines. So a bunch of more pastel looking kinds of ones coming soon. So I'm looking for ideas for names. If you have them, throw them in the comments below, and I'll take them into consideration. So say I normally name them after space things, but or characters in the movie or the book Dune is my other. I have one of those. I have some other really great books that I've read that I love, and I've made those I call it titles more around those characters. So this is kind of Eastery looking to me, but each one's unique. Kind of fun. Okay, gang, thank you for coming today, and I will catch you on Discord or at the next live. I'm going to try and do these at least once a week, and I'm trying to do them actually twice a week now. It's working out pretty well. So everybody, take care, stay safe, and I will catch you next time.